Welcome to the 3030 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Dr. Ruiz.
Hello everyone, super excited about my guest today. My guest today is my friend, Ari Whitten. Ari is a #1 best-selling author and the creator of the Energy Blueprint program. He is an energy and fatigue specialist who focuses on taking an evidence-based approach to energy enhancement. If you have suffered from fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, or you just want to optimize your mitochondria, this show is for you. But before we begin, a word from our sponsor. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Hey there, Dr. Alan Christensen here with you. I'd love to take just a moment and tell you about our Thyroid Advisor program. So what is the Thyroid Advisor visit? Well, imagine that one of your closest friends happened to be a thyroid doctor and that they understood the conventional, the naturopathic, and all the functional approaches. You know, they just wanted you to feel better and they were happy to video chat whenever you needed them. So that's basically it. Just click the link to set up a time and the IH docs are happy to help out today.
Hello everyone, super excited to have my friend Ari Whitten for the third time on the show. Man, like you broke the record. No one has been here for the third time. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you doing, my friend?
Dude, it's been amazing. What an amazing year. Gearing up to help as many people as we can. And this is like super short notice. But we have a couple of things that I want to talk about. And, you've been here, you've done your whole hero story. I want to focus more today on fatigue because, a lot of times when people come see me as a patient, that's one of like the biggest concerns. It's like it would be like interchangeably fatigue and weight loss. And there are so many things out there for fatigue. You name it, protocols or supplements or, this silver bullet kind of a thing. And a lot of my fatigue patients get a referral to you and they are like, what the hell is this? It's like this very comprehensive program that has helped a lot of people. Thousands of people have benefited from the Energy Blueprint. So instead of asking you what your hero story is, I want to ask you, how did you end up, delving so deeply into fatigue?
Yeah, so it connects a little bit to my background, which is just that I'll give you the super summarized version of it in 2 minutes. Basically, I've been studying health for a very long time. Since I was 14 years old, I got obsessed with health. And at that time, it was typical teenager stuff. I was really into nutrition and fitness and bodybuilding and fat loss and muscle gain was my whole world. But I was studying nutrition, I was studying physiology, I was studying biomechanics, and I was studying exercise science and fitness, and that's what I did my college degree in. And so this has been an obsession of mine literally for over 20 years now, since I was a teenager. In my mid-20s, I got mono. I got Epstein-Barr virus and I got mononucleosis. And I was severely fatigued for several months after recovering from the mono. And that kind of just put energy and fatigue on the map for me. And it really, this experience made me realize basically that, to be blunt and kind of casual in my language here, it made me realize that life sucks if you don't have energy. And I mean, everything in your life suffers. Your relationship suffers, your ability to have good, friendships and to do your job, for your brain to perform well, for you to physically perform well, for you to have the energy to enjoy life and do the things you want to do in life. And so that experience kind of put fatigue on the map for me. And after that, I kind of became obsessed with the idea of the science of energy levels, the science of overcoming fatigue. And this was a several year process that this kind of slowly evolved, and I dug more into the science. And then initially I was, I started in holistic health and have been studying holistic nutrition, holistic health for a very long time. And that was kind of my paradigm, coming from more of an ancestral paleo paradigm for a long time. And that still is mostly my paradigm, even though I don't affiliate with the paleo movement. but I'm still very naturalistic in my orientation. So as I'm exploring all of this science, and within that movement, adrenal fatigue, that whole paradigm kind of dominates the thinking. If you're into natural health, holistic health, everybody thinks fatigue is synonymous with adrenal fatigue. And the basic idea is, chronic stress taxes the stress response system, the adrenals, or the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The adrenals produce this hormone in response to stress called cortisol, which does things like modify blood sugar levels and inflammation in our body and a few other things. And the idea is it's part of this stress response system. Chronic stress taxes the system and sort of wears it out. And then you get low cortisol levels, you get adrenal burnout or adrenal exhaustion. And as a result of that process, that's what causes fatigue and these other symptoms that have become an epidemic in the modern world. So I had read lots and lots of books about that subject. And there's dozens of books out there. There's thousands of articles online about adrenal fatigue. And I just assumed that, people have already figured out this whole fatigue puzzle. It's just chronic stress, wearing out your adrenal glands, disrupting cortisol levels. That's the cause. So we need to fix our adrenals. And, that's pretty much the solution. So for a while, I was kind of just thinking it's figured out. And then something happened, which was I first encountered that conventional medicine doesn't really consider adrenal fatigue to be a legitimate condition at all. And I was kind of annoyed by this at first, because coming from the holistic health movement, I was like, that's weird. They just don't understand. They haven't looked into the research. And then so I thought I would actually write a book called The Evidence-Based Guide to Adrenal Fatigue. And I would go look and compile the research proving that adrenal fatigue is supported by the evidence. Well, the irony was that as I went and explored that evidence, what I found is that the evidence does not support at all the concept of adrenal fatigue. And the evidence is very, very consistent. There's over 25 years of research, about 79 studies in total from 1995 to 2018 that have examined specifically the question of the link between various fatigue syndromes, and they go by different names: clinical burnout, stress-related exhaustion disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome, a few others. The link between these fatigue syndromes and adrenal function and cortisol levels. And the vast majority of studies basically conclude there is no link. These people with these fatigue conditions do not have abnormal cortisol levels. So the vast majority of them, and even when there is abnormal cortisol levels that are slightly different from normal healthy people, they're slightly different. They're not wildly different. There's no research. There's not a single study that's indicative of people with even chronic fatigue syndrome, let alone stress-related exhaustion or burnout, that have a consistent, any sort of inability of their adrenals to produce enough cortisol. It's just totally unsupported in the literature.
Or even a pattern.
Yeah, or even a pattern. So basically the way the literature actually breaks down, if you want specific numbers, so there's about 20 literature reviews of the 79 studies. So we'll leave those out of this for now. That's the highest level of evidence. That's where scientists compile all the relevant data. And then there's 59 other individual studies. And the majority of these are basically, the basic design is, let's take a bunch of people with fatigue. Let's take normal, healthy people who do not have fatigue that are age-matched control groups, and let's compare their cortisol levels and see if there's any difference. Okay, and they do that in various ways, lots of different measurements. Most common one is salivary cortisol measurements over the course of usually over 24 hours over multiple time points, but certainly over the morning cortisol awakening response. And basically of those 59 studies, the way it breaks down is 15 of them showed evidence for slightly lower morning cortisol levels. Slightly lower morning cortisol levels, not 24-hour cortisol levels, not anything indicative of actual inability of the adrenals to produce enough cortisol, but slightly lower compared to normal healthy people, morning cortisol levels, still well within the normal range. Another 11 of the 59 showed slightly higher cortisol levels. So you have almost as many studies that have totally contradicted the first set. And then 33 of the 59, the vast majority of them, show perfectly normal cortisol levels. No difference whatsoever that is distinguishable between people with these fatigue syndromes and normal, healthy people without any problems. So that's what the evidence shows. There's no studies in existence that show any kind of consistent, hey, there's adrenal burnout going on. Nothing to support that at all. And yet, within the natural health movement, it seems like everybody has built this whole idea up to this point where it's all accepted as fact. But the truth is, almost everybody I've seen just hasn't actually looked at the literature comprehensively. They just take it at face value, since other people in the natural health movement are writing books about it and articles about it. Hey, it must be real. So anyway, that's at that point when I discovered that, that's when I was like, whoa, okay. So conventional medicine, and we can talk about what conventional medicine has to offer fatigue for people with fatigue, because that's actually even worse. So conventional medicine has very little to offer. Natural health is focused on this whole adrenal fatigue paradigm that they think is the cause of fatigue. And they're just obsessed with adrenal function and cortisol levels when the literature doesn't support it at all. So I went, hey, fatigue is an epidemic. And yet, the two main groups of people that should be doing something about it both really don't have much to offer. So I want to dedicate my life to building out the science, figuring out the science of what is really going on with people with fatigue, and what are evidence-based strategies that we can use to fix it, that we can use to overcome fatigue and amplify our energy levels, or even just go from normal energy levels to really amazing energy levels. So that's basically what I've been doing for the last 6 years or so.
How does a healthy person with good energy levels, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's really hard to quantify, right? It's so subjective. But I would say you should be waking up, and as soon as you wake up, you should feel a desire to spring out of bed, and you should be excited about your day. It should not be something where you're dragging yourself out of the bed, you're groggy, your brain is not turned on, you need your coffee to turn on your brain. It takes you an hour or two to get going. You have an afternoon crash, you're falling asleep in the evening, you get home from work, you don't have the desire to play with your kids or do anything except plop yourself on the couch and watch TV because you're out of energy. I'll give you an example. Like I live in San Diego. It's very sunny here and good weather a lot. I have the hardest time being indoors, just sitting down and working when it's nice outside. All I want to do is go out and play. I want to go hiking. I want to go ride my bike. I want to go surf. I want to go rock climbing. Like I need to get out and move my body and do things. And that's what it's like when you have a high energy body. You have this desire to go experience life and enjoy life instead of just sitting on the couch and just kind of plopping there and feeling exhausted and dragging yourself through the day and relying on food and stimulants and coffee to get through the day.
And that's where, this fatigue can affect your lifestyle. And that's what makes your life, suck. I'm like so divorced from the conventional model that I don't even know what you're going to say. How does the conventional model treat fatigue?
So this is a really cool story that I was super excited about. This is actually fairly recent. I'd say within the last, when did I find this? Within the last year, certainly. So for the longest time, I just heard all these stories from members of my group, people who are going through my program, the Energy Blueprint, who have gone to see conventional doctors, and almost always there's just nothing that they find. Like I hear all these reports, oh, my blood test was normal. Doctor said they didn't know what was wrong with me. They gave me antidepressants or they gave me sleeping pills. And so I just kept hearing those stories. So my general sense of it was conventional medicine they just don't have much to offer people with fatigue. But I didn't really have any good statistics on it. Or really clear evidence to speak on. So I found within the last year, I found this amazing overview, which it's called Fatigue and Overview, and it was published in the American Journal of American Family Physician, if I remember correctly. And it's basically a compilation of the relevant science that they're compiling to form their evidence-based guidelines for treatment. So what are the evidence-based guidelines when a physician encounters someone with fatigue? What do we do? Here's the guidelines. And here's what it said. And I'm not exaggerating here. This is literally what it said. So first of all, we do not know what the cause of fatigue is. So it's of unknown etiology. And What we can offer is treatments for symptomatic relief. They have 4 treatments that they offer in their evidence-based guidelines. A recommendation to do 30 minutes of walking and stretching every day, antidepressants, cognitive behavioral therapy, and stimulants as needed.
And I imagine the stimulants would include things like Adderall, caffeine.
Yeah, the main ones were caffeine and modafinil.
Oh, modafinil. Which is, it's a pretty cool drug, but still, you shouldn't need, we didn't evolve over millions of years to need modafinil.
Even worse than that, relying on stimulants actually makes you worse over time in terms of your fatigue. It gives you a temporary boost and through various mechanisms we could talk about if you want, but it basically either overstimulates the brain or creates a release of stress hormones. So it gives you a temporary boost of fake energy, but actually it's making you worse over time. So those are the 4 treatments that they have.
What happens when a person goes for a 30-minute walk and then they feel like shit for the next 2 weeks? Post-exertional fatigue.
Post-exertional malaise, yeah. So that's one of the key diagnostic symptoms of severe chronic fatigue syndrome is that post-exertional malaise where exercise actually makes them worse, right? So, there's this weird debate within the scientific literature and conventional medicine, guidelines versus a lot of the patients with chronic fatigue syndrome and the sort of the groups that support people with chronic fatigue syndrome, where, these conventional physicians and a lot of people in that community are basically insisted, hey, graded exercise therapy, that's what we need to do. It's all about, exercise. And these groups are saying exercise makes us worse. We can't do it. Anyway, there's a debate there. There's some literature going back and forth. It's somewhat of a controversial topic, but when done well, when designed really intelligently and cautiously, I don't have a problem with that recommendation. It's the fact that all they really have is like, hey, do some walking and stretching for 30 minutes a day, take some antidepressants and do cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what they got, and then take stimulants when you need them. Now there's one more part of this review that was amazing. So they recommended basically standard blood tests. Okay. And then they said, if there's any indication of, for example, tuberculosis or other, conditions, then you can do specific tests to identify those conditions. Standard blood tests is normal. And then they said in 95% of cases for people with fatigue, they do not find anything remarkable on the blood tests that leads to any difference in their recommendations. So that's what you got if you have fatigue and you're just at home and you're going, man, I'm just struggling with low energy levels. I need to go see my doctor so he can figure this out. And people imagine their doctor, he's got all this amazing advanced science, cutting edge science, modern medicine, and he's got these blood tests and you're going to get some blood and that blood is just going to show you what's going on in your body, what's going wrong and how to fix it. It's going to identify the problem, right? It seems really advanced to most people. The reality is you have a 95% probability of them finding nothing useful in your blood whatsoever. And then basically just telling you, hey, you should take some antidepressants and go for a walk for half an hour a day and take some, do CBT and consider stimulants when you need them.
And on the other side of things, you might go to a functional medicine practitioner. And now, depending on what article or what book they just read, they're going to test you for EBV. And they're going to misdiagnose you with an EBV infection because you have IgG antibodies. Or they're going to say, oh, the answer is, HPA axis dysfunction or adrenal fatigue. Or they're going to check your thyroid, which, this is what we do at my office. And, we focus highly on thyroid conditions. And we're going to see the thyroid levels, and maybe they don't understand the nuances of thyroid testing, and they're going to be like, oh, let's not pay attention to your TSH, and let's just overdose you with T3, and now you're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I'll add, as you and I both know, and we've talked about many times, there's so much testing within the functional medicine space now that's just not evidence-based. So at least within the conventional medicine space, they're saying, hey, the only real tests that are validated is the standard blood test. And so we're not recommending to just throw all these other tests at people because there's no clear evidence to support their usefulness. So standard blood test is what's useful. And to be fair, sometimes there is those 5% of people that, hey, they do find, oh, you have hypothyroidism, let's get you on thyroid medication, or you have diabetes, let's put you on metformin, or whatever it is. Those might be the other complications within that 5% of the time, or sleep apnea or something like that. There's some potential for them to find something useful that they can actually help with, but 95% of the time they don't. And within functional medicine, like you said, it's the opposite. So now they're throwing all kinds of tests at you, but the question is probably, or the thing is, I should say, that probably half of those tests are not even scientifically valid. And so they're going to get all these findings and they're going to say, hey, we've identified the cause of your fatigue. You have this abnormality and that abnormality and this one and that one. And your organic acids test shows this. And your cortisol measurements are this. So we're going to put you on these adrenal support supplements. And we're going to put you on supplements to alter this and alter that biomarker. And it seems like it's really advanced and scientific. And just as you know, again, so many of these tests just aren't even scientifically valid. You can do this test a second time the following week and get a totally different result.
So at least within the functional medicine movement, there is also a recommendation for, like, maybe you need to sleep more, maybe you need to stop the caffeine, you need to have a good nutrient dense diet, maybe you should take these nutrients, let's get some adaptogens, and those things seem to help, but it's completely confounded because you're helping something else, thinking that, oh, I finally fixed your adrenal fatigue.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. So they're doing things under the idea that they are fixing the adrenals, when in fact, a lot of those recommendations are impacting multiple physiological systems in the body. So I'll give you just one example of this. Let's say you give somebody a recommendation to have better sleep hygiene habits, to limit their artificial light exposure at night, to go to sleep a little bit earlier than they normally do, to not have TVs and lots of stimulation at night, but get in bed a little earlier, do something like a nice calming meditation at night, and sleep a little bit longer each night. Well, let's just take a look at one little piece of that puzzle. And there's literally 9 mechanisms that we could talk about here as far as how sleep impacts energy levels specifically, but just let's look at one of them. So melatonin production. People know of melatonin. It's a hormone produced by the pineal gland of the brain that helps trigger sleep. Okay, that part is totally true. But people don't realize, and there's lots and lots of research on this, but most people are unaware of it, melatonin is the most powerful mitochondrial antioxidant there is. It's one of the few compounds that actually penetrates into your mitochondria and protects them from damage. It stabilizes mitochondrial membranes and protects mitochondria from damage. It also boosts internal production of glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, all these internal antioxidants that protect our mitochondria from damage. And for people that don't know, mitochondria are cellular energy generators that power pretty much all of the trillions of cells in our body. Our brain, our heart, our organs, our muscles, etc. Okay. So when you have poor sleep hygiene habits and circadian rhythm habits, something as simple as too much artificial light exposure at night, someone might give you, as you said, someone might give you that recommendation under the guise that, oh, we need to have better sleep because it'll ease the stress on your adrenals, right? Well, let's just look at it this way. Let's say from the artificial light exposure at night, people are chronically suppressing their melatonin production by about 50% each night. Okay. So, and that's a reasonable number to believe. In some cases, it might even be more than that. So what happens if you chronically suppress every night, month after month, year after year, for decades, if you're chronically suppressing a hormone that is the most powerful protector of your cellular energy generators, well, over years, you accumulate lots of damaged and dysfunctional mitochondria that can't produce energy as efficiently. Okay, so this mechanism has absolutely nothing to do with adrenals or cortisol levels. It is a direct influence of the circadian rhythm system on the cellular energy generators, not mediated by cortisol or adrenal function or HPA axis function. One other example we could talk about here is the glymphatic system of the brain. Okay, so every night while you sleep, it turns out that your brain, the spaces between your neurons open up, and your brain literally pumps out toxins and cellular waste that accumulate over the course of the day. Well, what happens if you're not sleeping as deeply due to poor circadian rhythm habits and sleep habits? Is your brain is chronically building up and accumulating cellular junk and damaged mitochondria and toxins that it's not properly cleansing out, because either you're not sleeping deep enough or you're not sleeping enough time. So those are two mechanisms. Again, nothing to do with the adrenals or the HPA axis system. A third mechanism we could talk about is the effect on neurotransmitters. The circadian rhythm system impacts serotonin, it impacts dopamine, it impacts GABA, and it impacts orexin. All really important neurotransmitters. Orexin is the primary wakefulness and energy neurotransmitter. Okay, it's directly impacted by circadian rhythm and sleep. Nothing to do with the adrenals or cortisol. Dopamine, motivation, pleasure, mood. Serotonin, mood. Depression versus happiness. Lots of other factors. Low serotonin is also linked with irritability and fibromyalgia and things like that. And GABA is a key neurotransmitter in helping our brain to relax and calm down before bed, opposing anxiety, and helping you transition into sleep. Improper circadian rhythm and sleep habits disrupt all four of those neurotransmitters. So again, you have major, there's lots of mechanisms, and there's literally 6 more mechanisms we could talk about as far as how circadian rhythm and sleep impact on mitochondrial function and energy levels very directly. But those are just 3 of them, again, that have nothing to do with adrenal function or cortisol levels.
And we could do an hour podcast on each one of those mechanisms. It's funny because it's like the cards are stacked against us. We live in an environment that is not conducive to good mitochondrial health. And I think that's where you're getting to, that a lot of the things that you do in your program are impacting these batteries, the cellular batteries that are powering every single tissue, in our bodies. So 2 questions for you. So you talked about the glymphatic system in the brain and how that leads to detox. Have you ever seen keyboard warriors on the internet saying, "I have a liver, I don't need to detox"? What do you say to that? Yeah. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's great. Where did I commented on this recently? I did a post on it in my Facebook group. So it's fascinating. There are these sort of evidence-based skeptics out there, and I know a lot of these people. I'm friends with a lot of these people who believe these kind of things. But they say, "Oh, I have a liver and kidneys, and my body has these built-in detox mechanisms. So any talk of detoxification is all nonsense and pseudoscience." And I will grant them the fact that there are a lot of people out there talking about detox that are saying pseudoscience. But the simple reality, as you and I both know, is that there's lots of evidence showing that the human body does absolutely accumulate toxins or toxicants is the proper term for it, of various kinds, whether it's heavy metals like mercury and lead, or whether it's BPA and phthalates or benzene or many, many other compounds, and that are clearly associated. There's huge bodies of literature that are clearly associating exposures to these compounds with all kinds of nasty health effects, and clearly showing that they are accumulating in our bodies, or many of them do have the potential to accumulate in our bodies, I should say. So it's just insanity and just utter stupidity. And most of these people just haven't actually bothered to look at any of the research. They're just sort of like the adrenal fatigue thing. They're just kind of repeating the same thing that someone else said that they think is legitimate. And it's insane to think that humans can be exposed to all of the, I think it's something like 72,000 chemicals that we're being exposed to, man-made chemicals that we're being exposed to on a regular basis, and not have any negative effects from it because we have a liver, and there's even research in babies now, where they take umbilical cord blood from newborns, or I shouldn't say from newborns, but from the umbilical cord right after birth. It's not like they're draining the blood of the baby or anything, but
and then they inject it into their veins to live forever.
Yeah. So they take the blood from the umbilical cord, and there's, I think there's a couple studies on this, but I'm pretty sure they've shown over 200 detectable man-made chemicals in umbilical cord blood. So we're being exposed to these things before we're even born. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think it's totally necessary for us to be thinking about how we can bolster our body's detoxification pathways, how we can use things like sauna therapy and nutritional compounds that help our bodies detox properly.
And that's funny how what you said there. You said to boost our own detoxification pathways, and that's the nuance that people miss. It's not like drinking celery juice is going to get rid of all the Roundup and lead in your body. No, and that's where, like, again, it's in the middle. We do hear of like this really wacky and extreme detoxification programs that might be very harmful, and then the people against that completely focus on these wacky ideas, and then they claim that's it. There's no need for any detoxification. So let's talk about your program, okay? How is it formatted in how are you clarifying in an evidence-based manner the steps to get someone that, and I've seen it, people that can't get up from their bed, that they come to my clinic asking for, with forms for me to fill out because they're going to get fired and there is nothing they can do. How do you quantify? How do you make this program? What steps do you take to help people get out of this hole?
So first of all, I should say testing is always a good thing. Like individuals, if you have extreme fatigue, you should always get some testing done. Go to a conventional doctor, go to a functional medicine doctor, see if they can very clearly identify some issue that they are capable of helping you with. It's always a good thing. Now, keep in mind that I also just told you that, especially in the context of conventional medicine, there's a 95% probability that they will find nothing useful on your blood test. Okay. And then within functional medicine, as we said, a lot of those tests are of questionable significance and validity. And, you might be just chasing after nonsense. Like if you get some hormone panel and then you go try and take all these actions to fix your hormones. Well, you might have taken that same test the following week and gotten totally different results. So you're just chasing after stuff that may or may not even be real. Or an IgG panel, IgG food intolerance panel, which you and I have talked about extensively, which all of those, you're going to get these results that say, hey, you need to avoid these foods based on your personal blood sample and how it reacts with these foods. Whereas we know that those tests are totally invalid and nonsense and don't actually translate into real world results.
They might mean something completely different. And when you eliminate those foods, you are eliminating, some of the causes for intestinal permeability. But like, this drives me crazy. You have a person and they get this panel and you have like celery and onions and like eggs or wheat, things that are, some things are inflammatory, some, celery, and a doctor having the gall to say, okay, you need to remove celery from your diet, as if removing celery from your diet was the missing key for you to be completely healthy. That's nonsense.
Yeah, 100%. I say all that to say, again, get tested, see if they can identify something that's legitimate that they can help with. Okay. Now, having said that, vast majority of people are going to have normal test results. And then basically they're left in a situation of they still have low energy. The tests haven't identified something that's useful, or they've pursued that path and it hasn't been particularly fruitful. So what do you do then? Well, my approach is basically, in one sense, it's really crude, and in another sense, it's really sophisticated. So the crude sense is it's a shotgun approach. I'm not taking people through some secret advanced diagnostic cutting edge test that no other doctors know about, and I'm identifying the specific individual variables that are causing their unique fatigue. What I'm doing is I'm figuring out what the blueprint is for the habits and the key physiological mechanisms that are responsible for fatigue. And I'm figuring out the blueprint of the habits and the key physiological mechanisms that are responsible for high energy levels and building a high energy body. And I'm also operating with the general principle that nothing in our body, nothing in our physiology is separate, nothing is disconnected. So the truth is, if you were able to do a metabolomics panel, and this kind of testing is coming out, which is a super comprehensive blood panel, that can test over 600 metabolites in your blood. They've done these kinds of panels with people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and they've found something like over 80% of metabolites are abnormal. So, in other words, it's not one thing that's abnormal. It's not your adrenals and your cortisol that are abnormal and everything else is fine. You just need to fix your adrenals. It's that almost everything in your body is off to some small degree or fairly large degree. So what are you going to do? You're going to take a supplement for each one of those metabolites that's off and try to fix each one of these little biomarkers and biochemicals. You're going to try to optimize it? No. What you do instead is you come back to the naturalistic framework that you and I both operate in, and you ask the question, what is the right environment for the human body to exist in, to express optimal health, and for our cells to produce energy efficiently? That's the right question to ask, not to say, let's go chase after 500 different metabolites and try and design a specific protocol to fix each one. Let me put this in different terms so people get this, because a lot of humans have a hard time getting this. But when we think about it in a different context, humans immediately get it. So let me ask you this. Let's say you had a zoo and you had a tiger in your zoo, and your tiger started to express signs that it was unhealthy. Would you, A, do a comprehensive blood panel on it and start giving specific supplements to try to optimize each one of those biomarkers? Or would you, B, figure out what tigers are designed for in the wild and try to replicate that environment and that diet as best as possible?
Well, I actually would give him modafinil, antidepressants, and I'd tell the tiger to stretch 30 minutes a day. If that didn't work, maybe I would go with the second option, which would be
Exactly.
Put him in an evolutionarily sound environment. And this is what happens, We talk about like maladaptations, okay? Like the tiger is expressing, or a person is expressing fatigue because they're maladapted to the environment. And I think that the body is actually acting as if it was evolutionarily programmed. It's not acting the wrong way. If you shine blue light on a person's face, the adaptive mechanism is to suppress melatonin, because there could be, you got to be aware of what's going on in your environment. It's more difficult to hide. It's more, you shouldn't be sleeping. So it's actually the right response. So it's taking yourself from that maladapted space and putting yourself in an adaptive situation.
Yeah. And let me add to that. Let me go one step further. So there's research just in the last 5 years or so, especially from Dr. Robert Naviaux, on something called the cell danger response. And the basic idea that I'll oversimplify here, but the basic idea is mitochondria aren't just these sort of mindless energy generators like we've thought for so long. They're actually exquisitely sensitive environmental sensors. And they are sensing what's going on in your body, what's going on in the environment. Are there toxins present? Is there inflammation and immune activation present? Is there lipopolysaccharide floating around in the blood from a leaky gut? Are we sleep deprived? Right? Is there psychological stress? Turns out your mitochondria can actually detect all of those things, and they are. Mitochondrial researcher Doug Wallace says mitochondrial DNA is the most sensitive thing in the entire body. So mitochondria are exquisitely sensitive. They are the most upstream thing. People talk of the HPA axis or the limbic system or the parts of the brain or whatever it is. It turns out the mitochondria are the most upstream. They are the first things that sense what's going on.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Because mitochondrial DNA comes from Mom. And just as a side note, the most dangerous types of cancer are mutations to mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah. So basically, the cell danger response is this. Mitochondria can either exist in peacetime mode, peacetime metabolism, or energy mode, where they're producing lots of energy, where they say, hey, everything's great, we're healthy, the environment is safe, let's produce lots of energy. Or if they start detecting lots of threats present, any of those things that I just mentioned, they start to shut down energy mode and shift into defense mode, or the cell danger response, which is coordinating this whole sequence of events that's designed to protect the cell. So if that sounds like a sort of abstract idea that's hard to get, just think of this. Think of the last time you had a cold or a flu. What is one of the key symptoms of having that infection?
Malaise.
Yeah, fatigue. So you're tired, you're low energy levels. You want to lay down and rest instead of going out and running and working really hard. Your body wants to lay down and it wants to rest. It's fatigue. Fatigue is, and to connect the dots here with what you were saying, fatigue is a protective mechanism of the body. It's not this maladaptive thing. It's actually highly adaptive. It's exactly what your body is designed to do when it's detecting threats. Your body, whether those are infections or toxins or a poor diet or a leaky gut or psychological stress, or a bad light environment, light deficiencies and light toxicities, disrupted circadian rhythm, on and on and on. There's lots of other factors we could talk about. The mitochondria are detecting the presence of that, and they're going, oh, there's dangers present. Let's shift more out of energy mode towards defense mode to protect the body. The body actually shifts into a lower energy, more fatigued state, is a way to conserve energy and conserve resources, to make sure that you're not burning the candle at both ends, to make sure that you rest in order to devote resources to dealing with the toxin exposure, dealing with the infection, or with the psychological stress. Fatigue is a protective mechanism that is adaptive, that is trying to help you. So the key here, when you understand that, is how do we repair the mitochondria? How do we make the mitochondria feel safe again and eliminate those sources of stress that are triggering them into defense mode and shutting down energy mode? How do we shift the mitochondria back into energy mode? And that's where it's really at. That's where I think once you start asking that question, now that starts to get into effective, real answers.
And it's funny because these adaptive mechanisms are so ingrained and so prevalent that, someone with good muscle tone is going to be more attractive. Someone with a good tan is going to be more attractive. And you can continue going down the list, someone with more energy, someone happy, because we detect that this is a person that is healthy. And it's just insane that we threw everything out, the window, and now we're concentrating on giving you Adderall or giving you stimulants in order to get you out of that depressive or fatigue state. So what are some of the modules that you cover in your program?
Yeah, so let me take you through kind of the basic layout of it. So module number one is, there's two parts to it. One is circadian rhythm and sleep optimization. I consider that,
and it's awesome how that's the first one.
Yeah, well, it's the first one for a reason, because I really consider that the foundation. There's, like I said, there's 9 different mechanisms that are going on. You could think of it as 9 different systems of the body that will cause fatigue as long as your circadian rhythm and sleep are not optimized. So that's one aspect of it. The other part of module one is I take people through like just sort of a lifestyle and environment cleanup to eliminate some of the triggers of the cell danger response. So, for example, cleaning up your kitchen cookware to use low toxin cookware, and simple things like getting rid of plastic Tupperware, replacing it with glass, getting a water purifier to effectively purify water, not like a cheap Brita or crappy water.
Oh, dude, I got to tell you this story, okay? So I live in Arizona, super dirty water, okay? And I found a place that did reverse osmosis and then remineralized the water, okay? So for about 4 years, I would go to this store, out of the way, get my water and then bring it to the house, and that's what I drank. And then for Christmas, my girlfriend and me, we got ourselves a Berkey, not the best, but pretty good quality filter, okay? So my girlfriend last night grabs the dog bowl. My dog goes and starts like scratching at the dog bowl, grabs the dog bowl and fills it with water from the spout, puts it down. My dog walked to the containers of water that are empty from our remineralized, reverse osmosis and start tapping at them. My girlfriend was like, what? She threw away the water, filled it with the Berkey, and then she came and drank it. How insane is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And people and animals can detect it better than humans can, I think, because we're used to drinking crappy water.
We are.
But water, the drinking water, especially in the United States, is full of all kinds of nasty stuff. So, it's imperative to get a super high quality water filter that can remove, and only certain kinds of filters can remove things like fluoride, can remove chlorine disinfection byproducts. There's even some places in the US where there's literally radioactive compounds in the water supply. There's pharmaceutical residues. There's all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, it's just absolutely imperative to do that. So there's a bunch of, basic environmental cleanup stuff that anybody who's, probably most listeners to this podcast who are well-read and knowledgeable in health have heard most of those things in that particular topic. It's just basic environmental cleanup for those people who don't already know it. Foundational stuff. Circadian rhythm, optimization, and sleep, really, really important stuff. I get into some really advanced strategies there. Then we get into the neuroscience around optimizing your brain and your autonomic nervous system, so sympathetic, and a lot of it's based on the polyvagal work of Stephen Porges. And basically rewiring your brain and your nervous system out of chronic stress mode back into ventral vagal dominance, back into relaxation, safety mode. And I brought in Mark Waldman, as well as Nikki Gratrix, who helped out a lot in that module. Mark Waldman is a neuroscience expert. Nikki Gratrix is sort of a mind-body fatigue expert. Very, very knowledgeable people and really excellent, amazing strategies there. Then I get into the nutrition, the nutrition side of things. So the Energy Blueprint diet, it's not any kind of extreme diet. It's not keto or carnivore or vegan or anything like that. It's just basically the principles and strategies of optimizing your diet for high energy levels. A lot of different really cool stuff there, how to repair and regenerate mitochondria, things like that. Then we get into the gut module, how to fix your gut, where I brought in this awesome, amazing doctor named Dr. Guillermo Ruiz to do the gut protocol for the program. And so I have literally your protocol, as you know, in that program. And that's all about repairing two of the key drivers of fatigue, which are gut dysbiosis and gut permeability issues.
And I respect you so much that I would not give that protocol to anyone else.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
I know. There's going to be a lot of people very interested in this, and I'm going to do the same thing. Once they get to that level, I'm going to jump on that Facebook Live and answer questions for them, because your people are like the coolest. They are, they are the most effervescent bunch in the functional medicine community, and I love answering their questions. And they're just like I'm so grateful to be part of that group.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're a part of it, and it's awesome to have your work as part of the program as well. And you did the gut protocol better than I could have ever. So I'm very grateful for that. And so I mean, we didn't talk about the mechanisms, but certainly gut permeability, gut dysbiosis are very key drivers of fatigue for a lot of people. So that's awesome to have your work on fixing gut health. And then we get into science-based detoxification, which we talked a little bit about. And I brought in Dr. Brian Walsh, who's an expert in that. So really evidence-based, really hardcore evidence-based strategies for detoxification, some really cool stuff there. And then the last one, which is my favorite topic, which is something called hormesis, which is basically the science of how to use specific kinds of mitochondrial stressors or stimulators in a very systematic way to literally build up your mitochondria bigger and stronger, and actually build more of them. In much the same way that weight training builds a muscle, you can do certain things that build up your mitochondria, which is ultimately your cellular engine. That's the thing that's producing energy. So if you can take your mitochondria from small, little, weak, fragile, dysfunctional energy generators and having very few of them, to having lots of big, powerful, healthy, resilient energy generators, and really a ton of them, you've literally, it's like the equivalent of replacing your little, broken down 4-cylinder 1980s Pinto engine with a Ferrari engine. And I'm not saying you can do that instantly, but you can literally replace the engine in your cells with a much bigger, stronger engine. And so that's what that aspect is all about. And there's a whole bunch of bonuses as well. I believe 5 different bonuses that people get in the program, but that's kind of the breakdown of the modules.
And something really cool is happening this week within the Energy Blueprint. And can you talk a little bit about what's going on in the exciting world of the EBP?
Yeah. So right now we're actually in the middle of, well, not quite in the middle. We just started the Energy Blueprint Masterclass launch. So this is the only time that these videos are going to be available in 2019, and the only time this program is going to be available in 2019. So there's this big launch. People listening to this probably received some emails about it. There's tons of emails going out all over the health community, lots of different health gurus. So whoever you follow is probably sending out emails, promoting this Energy Blueprint Masterclass. And it's 4 videos packed with really, really powerful content to really start increasing your energy levels right now, to start overcoming fatigue and getting your energy back, basically the habits of how to build a high energy body. And I take people through that in this 4 video sequence. And then at the end of it, on April, well, actually, let me say this. So these videos are only going to be available from April 4th through April 19th. It's just this little window of time that they're available for free. And then all these masterclass videos are going to get taken down. At the end of it, I'm also going to release the full 60-day Energy Blueprint program. So that will be available for purchase. That's the only time it's going to be available this whole year. So that's what's going on right now. And I know you offered to have me on the podcast and then rush to get this out so that we could get it out to people during this short window of time in April, which I really appreciate you for doing that.
The reason why this is open only for a small amount of time is because the people that get into the program get special treatment and they get to ask questions. So there is no way this could be open year round.
Yeah, well, the basic idea of it is we have to cap the number of people that are in the program because, as you know, because you're in the group and you sometimes answer questions there, which is amazing that people get access to me and you and several other doctors and experts. So we have to cap the number of people that are in there because they get to ask basically unlimited questions and get unlimited help and coaching.
For a year.
So, I mean, yeah, we can't
forever.
We can't have 500,000 people in that group. Otherwise, it would take a team of 30 people to be a full-time job to just answer questions. So I have to cap the number of people that are in there. The people who get access to it get very special treatment. They get access to us in the Facebook group, and they get access to me for live Q&A sessions every week. And you were kind enough to even do a few of those live Q&A sessions for people going through the gut module. And so, it's really an amazing opportunity for everybody struggling with fatigue, or even if you're moderately healthy and you just want to learn the science, the habits of how to build an even higher energy body. Basically, this is for you.
It's an amazing program. And seriously, the people in that group, it's probably one of the coolest places. Whenever I log into Facebook, a couple of times a week, and one of my stops is always at the Energy Blueprint, because to see the transformations that people have made and to see how people progress as the program goes on, it's fantastic, and really cool people in that Facebook group, and you're helping a ton of people, and it's just such a great program.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that. And I will say that I definitely tend to attract a group of people that have sort of tried a lot of things, and they tend to be a pretty sophisticated, intelligent bunch, and they're extremely well-read and knowledgeable about various aspects of health. So it's not like, this is not a program for learning the basics of, how to eat a healthy diet and how to do basic exercise and, basic sleep hygiene. This is really a program with advanced, cutting edge, novel stuff that even people who have been studying nutrition a long time or studying health a long time will not have heard at least 50% of this stuff. And there's also, I should mention, hundreds of doctors, and health professionals who go through this program and love it. I get comments from people that are like, I'm in this functional medicine training right now. And I'm in your course, and I've learned 10 times more from your course than I have in my functional medicine certification. So I get that kind of stuff all the time.
Years ago, I had a patient who needed an endocrinologist. Like her PCP told her, you need an endocrinologist. And she was looking around the valley and found me. Like no knowledge of anything, like no functional medicine. And she just landed at integrative health. And like the recommendation was like, well, you need to eat nutrient dense foods. And it was like, explosions in her head. No way. This information is so amazing. The people that are in this group have tried everything. They've gone from fat diet to fat diet, from supplement to supplement, and they are tired of being tired.
From vegan to carnivore and everything in between.
everything in between. And to see, people that have tried everything and nothing works, and then finally they are getting better, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much, my friend. And you're part of that too, with the gut protocol, with helping people out in the community, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep doing it, man.
Awesome.
So thank you for this short notice. I really wanted to get this message out because I want as many people to have access to it, because that window is going to be short.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this on short notice. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, dude. So go to the link on this show. I'm going to put it on the Facebook page, and I hope to see you there in that Facebook group. And dude, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you know what? Let's just set it up. I will set it up right now for you. Let's set it up at theenergyblueprint.com/Dr. Ruiz. And let's do that all one word with no period. So DRRUIZ. So theenergyblueprint.com/Dr. Ruiz. And that will take you directly to the masterclass.
Beautiful. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. And
yeah,
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, my friend.